Hello, today we are talking about agility versus chaos inside sales ops. This is the sales ops effect, where we strengthen our skills as strategic leaders to grow businesses with integrity. There is a lot to be said for being flexible, but as we all know, inside of most organizations, what we see is chaos. And so trying to find the balance between being accused of being too rigid, being the watchdog for absolutely everything, because people like to use that emotive language when they simply just don't want to do their jobs. So trying to find that balance between trying to figure out, how much do I push this? How much do I stand behind? These are the things we set out to do. These are the things that we have done. These are the things that are unmovable, versus nothing is off the table. Everything is up for grabs. And what we have to remember here is, what is the point of us doing what we're doing in the first place? Because we're not just here to keep the ship running. Most of us, people listening to this podcast anyway, because we're in small and medium-sized businesses, we're creating things. Ideally, some stuff we're simply maintaining and keeping the operation running. But in a lot of cases, we are having to create processes and align to changing company goals as need be, right? And, you're coming into an organization, most organizations that are scaling up, are growing businesses, it is chaotic, for the people who can manage it, it's okay, but it's chaotic. There are lots of changes going on all the time. And, chaos is about not having anything that is standardized, or very, very few things. Chaos means that anything can change at any given point in time. Everything is up for grabs. And there doesn't ever really seem to be a point at the center that everyone is trying to orbit around or aim towards. The priorities can change all of the time. Whereas the ability to be flexible, to be agile, is about knowing what your critical path is towards the goal, knowing what milestones absolutely have to happen in order for you to get to where you're going, because the other things can be flexible. It's about building that in, because you just can't have something where you've agreed on a project and so every single step and every single date will stay exactly the same. It just won't. It just won't ever. So building in at the beginning the fact that there are certain things, there are certain pillars, staples inside of sales operations, inside of sales, that are just a given. They are standard, i.e., you need to be putting amounts on your opportunities when they're in the CRM. What stage you have to put those amounts in can be flexible. It might not be the first stage. It is for some companies, it isn't for a lot of others. But the fact that those opportunities need to be in the system, that's a definite. That can't change. The fact that amounts do need to appear on those opportunities, it's a definite. That can't change. The fact that salespeople need to build a pipeline, because presuming that you're going to win 100% of all of the deals that you're currently talking about all the time, is insane. That is something, whatever your company's rules are, there are things that are just definite things. But things that can change are the intricacies of certain processes. When different people can be called in at different parts of it, that can change. The terminology of certain things. If you have your own terminology and you're coming into an organization, you're saying, this is what this is and this is what that is, you want to check that what that word means isn't called something else already, because coming in and changing that for no reason doesn't help anyone. You can just adopt the company's language that we have, as long as the intention is to make sure everybody is on the same page and we understand that. Language is a very, very big thing. I talk about it quite a bit in the sales operations leadership skills course. But that's the difference that I'm trying to point at, is that there are certain things that can be modified. And if you keep that in mind, that you know what your pillars are, this is just a given. This is something that doesn't change, and you never let up on it, because even senior people if they're working outside of character or outside of the values that, you as a business are trying to align to, will try to push you on the fact of, oh, they don't want to add opportunities and things like that. And that's not everyone, clearly, but there are some cases I've experienced it where some people are just outright scandalous. And particularly if you're new to business in general or new to our profession, it can feel really difficult to stand there and say, no, you do need to definitely have amounts in the system. Definitely, definitely, definitely. Whilst people who have been in the business for 20 years longer than you are arguing at you, trying to force you to change the boundaries of what is acceptable, it can be difficult, but you do have to hold firm. And so I'll give you an example here quickly before we finish off. There was a client I was working with. We had the situation where some of the sales leaders were unscrupulous and were doing wheeling and dealing in the background. They were spending more time being political than they were actually doing their job. They were spending more time trying to hide the fact that they weren't doing their job than even attempting to do their job in the first place. And so it involved, for me, for a long time, having to really stand firm by things like, you do need to put all of the opportunities in the system. You do actually need to call a lead when a lead is given to you. And you might think, why wouldn't some people call leads? Why do some people do anything? Not our job to figure that out. But the things that I had to stand firm on, I had to stand firm so hard that even with my experience, I'm an expert in this field in SMEs, I'm just like, is it even worth it? Now, I know what I'm saying is correct. The things that I was flexible on, I could be flexible on, but they were trying to attack the foundations, the principles of just having an organized structure that could talk to the rest of the company, that the rest of the company was incredibly grateful for and wanted more information in a more organized way. Some people were trying to attack that and tear that down so much, not for the benefit of the company or the benefit of the purpose of why everybody was there to try to do their job, but because of their own personal issues. And I had to hold firm on keeping what had been built so far, the foundations, the building up, the level 1, level 2 of maturity inside of the sales team about what is expected. The expectations that the salespeople have to the outside world as well as to the inside world with our colleagues. Standing firm when so many people or some big names were trying to really tear it down. It's exhausting. But at the end of a long period of time, there was a big change in that company. And the big change meant that how we would market and the packages that were being offered changed. They were much more simplified and solidified, and they were solid offerings. And, obviously there's only so much detail I can get into, but basically I was sitting in that room when I was being read into all of this, and the wave of relief that came over me towards the end of that meeting and for the rest of the day was like, that's what that was all for. Because if I didn't stand firm on the foundations that some were actively trying to tear down for their own reasonings, if I didn't stand firm every single day for that X amount of time, then there is no way that the sales team and the marketing team, quite frankly, would be able to pivot to this new edict that's just come down with anywhere near the amount of ease. It would have taken months, 2 quarters at the very least, because we'd be starting from scratch. They wouldn't have even had the information that they needed in order to realize that this is the way that we could do things if I wasn't holding the gates firm, And so there's a reason for it all. I mean, we know there's a reason for, sticking up for what's right and keeping your eye and your head towards the goal. But I share that example with you because that is really what it felt like, because I couldn't see an end in sight for what was going on. There was, as you can imagine, a lot of other complications and situations going on around that particular period of time. with those people. But it's like, to know that that's what it was for, when I didn't know that this big old change was coming, there's no way we'd be able to support that endeavor if I'd just gone, yeah, fine, we'll change this and we'll change that, and we'll change this and we'll change that. Our job isn't solely about supporting the sales team. It's about supporting the company's growth. We need to think bigger, because sometimes the sales team isn't directed. You support the company's growth and everybody benefits. You know, and that's one of the reasons why inside of the course, which is opening up next week, we go into values, because that's what helps you to have your own foundation. The more you're aligning to your own foundation, and ideally you're going to be in a company where you align to their values as well, then you can make the correct decision, the right decision, over and over and over again. And it gives you that armor, so that when you are being attacked, or when the processes are being attacked, when the pillars, the foundations are being attacked, you can defend them. And it's still going to be hard, but it'd be a lot harder if you didn't have any foundation in yourself in the first place. So I hope that helps. Please do let me know how you feel about being flexible when people are asking you to make changes, etc., and what it feels like. Because I've definitely been in the situation where I've given in too much back in the day, and then it was just chaos that I had to fix. Because obviously it didn't matter that 15 people asked me to change different things and I just did it. It's still my responsibility. So let me know how that's felt for you and what you've experienced, because I think it would be very interesting to hear and read other people's stories, and letting people know that this isn't just a one-time thing. Lots of people have experienced it. And I would be really interested to see that. We'll catch up soon.